Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff Usher, Senior Program Officer at the Kansas Health Foundation, talking about the Healthy Communities Initiative semi-monthly reporting form. I think we have a combination of both Healthy Communities 1 and Healthy Communities 2 online. As we mentioned at our convening back on October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, we thought it would be best to go ahead and get the Healthy Communities 2, round 2 communities, go ahead and reporting on the reporting forms that we asked to be reported every other month. And so we decided to go ahead and have some instructions today on how to access it, and then some clarifications, hopefully, on how to report. First of all, as we had talked about at the convening, not only will we ask the Healthy Communities Round 2 to start reporting on the reporting form, but we're also going to move the timeline up so the implementation can start earlier, so we don't have that big lag from the end of March until September of 2014. And since all the Healthy Communities have already identified a policy priority, that we felt like it made sense for them to go ahead and begin implementing the community change framework. And really that's what this reporting form does. It helps kind of tell the story of how each community is implementing that change framework. And we also hope that it will help communities stay intentional and deliberate around focusing on those activities and then reporting them back to the technical assistance team. So it can be used as a tool, we hope, for each community's leadership team to kind of structure how they might implement the community change framework, design how they would plan future activities around the community change framework, and then report how those activities are happening on every other month. So with that, I'm going to one other thing we wanted to make sure that people understood. Since we are moving the timeline up, we're actually, the grant status reports for this particular, for round 2, will be due April 1st of 2014. And what we're going to do is we're going to provide you instructions on how to both fill out that grant status report as well as submit kind of your implementation plans for the implementation period, which would include all the requirements that we'll need to have. And those instructions will be, for instance, how did you come up with the 50% match? And then we'll also want some what we're calling SMART objectives on how you're going to be implementing the community change framework around your policy priority. So all that will come and be submitted on that report. At that time, we'll consider that report, if everyone desires, as also a request to have the opportunity to engage in the implementation phase of this particular initiative. So that's kind of the overall timeline and direction we're hoping everyone can move. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa to actually show you how to sign in and get onto the reporting system.
Hi, everyone. This is Elissa with the Kansas Health Foundation. And as Jeff said, I'm going to go through the reporting system that we're calling our grantee reporting portal. And after this webinar, what I'm going to do is send out an email to all of those that are in attendance that represent each community. And within that email, it will have a link that will take you to the login page, which will also have your grant number as well as a password to get into the site. This password will be set up for you within that email, but once you have logged in, you can change that password if you want, and I'll show you how to do that. But for today's purposes, I'm just going to log into an account that I've created here for the foundation. Your grant number will look similar to what's entered here at the top, and then I have my password, and then I'll go ahead and log in. Since I already logged in, it took me to the wrong page, but the first page that you'll see once you log in is your work plan form, And what this is it'll be those SMART objectives that Jeff was just mentioning that you'll submit with your grant status report, and they'll just be listed here on this page that you're seeing here. So right now we don't have anything entered, so it just says no objectives. And then on the right side of this screen, you'll see there's 4 different activity reports that will need to be completed. And then your annual reports, which are part of your implementation grant, will also be submitted throughout this reporting portal. And then if you want to change your password, as I mentioned, you can hit the change password button at the very bottom and change the password to what you would like. So what I'm going to do right now is just walk through the activity reports. So these activity reports, for those that are part of round 2, your reports are due on November 15th of 2013, so that's soon approaching. And the dates that those activities would cover would be September 1st of 2013 to October 31st of 2013. And in that email that I'm sending out, I'll also include a list of all the due dates for all of your activity reports, so you'll have that handy. So if I click on community mobilization, the first thing that you'll see is just some text here, a description. But at the very top, kind of the right side, it says current reporting period. And that, again, will list out the dates that you'll be submitting your report covering. And right now, it's giving me the dates that I just mentioned, September through October. If there's some other options, make sure that you have the selected dates covering the right period that you're submitting your activities on. So now I'm going to pass it over to Jeff really quick. He's going to kind of talk about the community mobilization report.
And as we talked about it at the convening early in October, when we first began talking about these semi-monthly reporting forms with our first round of communities, we were going to design a particular reporting process that would be just for the healthy communities. During that time, we had been already engaged with someone who was going to help us build a reporting portal for all of our initiatives, and that was done prior to the first round of reports, and so we had to generalize that reporting form. So I know that Claudia last week sent out some instructions that I had drafted for all the communities, and these instructions you should have with you while you're filling out the report, because if you just read the instructions under, for instance, community mobilization, it might be a little bit confusing. So clearly around the community mobilization piece, can we go to as if we were going to report? So we're adding an activity. So what the community partner or coalition member should not be a leadership team member. So you're going to be asking how the leadership team engaged a partner or coalition member that is not one of the leadership teams in doing something in your community. This really is a means to demonstrate that you have mobilized someone in your community towards some action. And those instructions clearly talk about that. If you were to look at how it says rationale, why this partner, how will this partner support your work? Really, what we want there is you'll be able to fill in who the community partner is, and if it is an individual, we'd like for you to indicate what their affiliation is. And then you would choose which type of whether it was community education, government policymaker education, so that did they go to the city council meeting and speak on the behalf of your policy priority? Did they go and meet with an organizational leader, decision maker? And then you would just basically describe how that person, this is where in the rationale, why this partner, this is where you might describe how the coalition leadership team, engage that person. For instance, you might say, John Doe from, the leadership team member John Doe contacted whoever that person is, or went and spoke to Rotary, and Rotary then did this. And so that would be how you would describe that activity. So this was one of them that I think a lot of people in the first round of reporting had a little bit of challenge with. But I think if you keep these instructions forms with you, as well as continue to consider how you're getting other people to really take action in the community around your policy priority. Now, if you guys have questions, you can go ahead and text in the questions that you might have as we go along. I know we had a lot of questions at the convening in early October. I might add that we'll be working with the TA team. One of the things I want everyone to feel comfortable with is go ahead and feel comfortable reporting however you feel the right way to report in, and do the best you can. We're not counting off people doing it wrong. What we found is we did not have, our instructions weren't real clear the first round, so we had a lot of people that made some errors in how they reported, but the data was fairly clear, and we were able to provide, we can specifically provide instructions to those members who are filling out this form in the future. We're also going to be working with Innovation Network, who are our formal evaluators, with helping us vet all these so that we can make sure that we're looking at apples and apples and not apples and oranges when we're trying to do some data collection. But like I said, just feel free to do as best you can, and as always, either talk to your TA team if you have questions, or you can feel free to call me if you have questions regarding these. So with that, I think we can move on to the next.
I want to point out real quick, so when you add an activity, when you go to add that community partner name, there's a drop down, and since this will be your first report, you won't have any names available from that drop down. So if I close this box really quick, what I need to do is add a partner name to the database. So if I were just to enter John Doe and I click on save, and I go to add my activity, that individual's name is now there. So then going forward for all of your reports, that person's name will always be available in this drop-down, so you won't have to continue typing in.
And remember, if you do say John Doe, try to include the affiliation or what organization or coalition, what that particular person does. And I'm going to add, under the rationale, you also might also really, sometimes it may not be clear that the activity that person is doing is really directed towards your policy priority. So you can include in that rationale how that person's activity will help move the policy priority in your community.
And then once you enter that one activity, you'll see there's a box now that includes all that data we just entered. If you want to edit that data, if you found something wrong after you hit the save, you can click the little pencil button to edit. And if you want to just go ahead and delete it, you can hit the red little X. And what I do want to mention also is on these activity reports, there is no save button or submit button. How this system works is once you've entered your activity in and it's viewable in the little box, it's being saved as we speak. And then there's no submit button. How this works is that once your due date hits, so the first due date is November 15th. Once that due date hits and it's midnight on that November 15th, the system will then lock, and you're not going to be able to add any more activities. And then that data that you have entered by November 15th is what we receive here at the foundation. So then there's no submit button. Everything that you have entered will be submitted to us. So if we go now to the media engagement activity report, again, I'll have Jeff kind of go over this activity report briefly.
Really, we talk about this in terms of media engagement. It really is the kind of the outcomes for your community education. So when you're educating the community, trying to make sure that you are trying to engage others at retelling the story around your policy priority. And that could be done through a number of different media outlets. So the idea is this reporting, first of all, on the very first, number one, record of earned media recruitment activities during this reporting period. You can talk about how you try to engage different partners in the media, whether it's distributing materials, engaging reporters or outlets directly, or trying to activate other partners in earned media, other community members in earned media. So you can check those and then describe how you've engaged those. If, in fact, you have entered some type of record in number two area, point to number two. If you enter this, you need to have included something in the first section. So basically, what this is the activity you describe in the first section, record of media recruitment, and then you describe what basically the type of story, whether it was a newsletter, a blog, and we hope if in fact we found out there's several that were unable to have links, but that's all right. If we go ahead and tell the talk about what the story was and what type of outlet it was. Someone asked if we could include download PDFs, and we can't do that. So we'll just trust that you're telling us the truth. If in fact, for instance, someone wrote a newsletter to their newsletter, you can just report that, and we'll trust that you're telling the truth. So again, this is really trying to tell the story that is focused on your policy priority. There's quite a bit of under describing the rationale for choosing the media recruitment activities. Clearly, I think we had some people that reported activities that, for instance, we had an event, and then someone wrote about the event. Just having the event, if you haven't recruited someone to come, a media outlet or someone to come and tell the story, that would not be included in the recruitment part. So this again is another means to maybe remind you as you're meeting together as a leadership team, as you have activities, how you might deliberately recruit a reporter or someone else to tell the story. It's really about retelling the story of your and moving towards your policy priority.
Okay, now we'll go to the next activity report, which is advocacy with organizational decision makers. Again, I'll have Jeff go over this report.
Go ahead and hit the add activity. So on this section primarily was designed because there's two types of policies that you might be focused on. Some communities are focused on more organizational policies that may be creating some policies in an organization, or a lot of them are through could be a work site, it could be school systems, it could be a number of things. When you advocate in those environments, you'll be trying to advocate for a policy priority directly with those environments. That's why this was intended to be there. So actually, if you have a policy, and there has been some confusion, not only with the communities, but even confusion on the technical assistance teams around a government employee. If you have a policy priority which is a local government policy that you're looking at, for instance, it might be around active transportation and bicycle master plan. And if you're engaging public employees like a city planner, city administrator, county administrator, you would not include them in this section. You would include them in the educating government in the next section. However, you still might, even though you are looking, for instance, we just actually here in Wichita have an example of how we, as a Health and Wellness Coalition, have the policy priority to have a publicly appointed food policy council. And just last week, we had met with two individuals. One was a county employee who oversaw economic development in the county. In that meeting, we were trying to kind of assess how to first approach the county commission, how to and when to do that, but also how to engage the county manager and other administrators in the county. So in that particular point, he is a government employee, so that is around educating, and we also we're basically talking about why we wanted the Food Policy Council. So we were educating a policymaker under that particular example. At the same time, the leadership team has also kind of, the idea is the best place for this, or the best place where someone could staff this Food Policy Council in Sedgwick County would be under K-State Extension, Sedgwick County Extension, which is kind of a quasi-government, but they're not, they don't have it's not a local policymaker, and we can go in and advocate with that person at making a policy within the Sedgwick County Extension without having to go to counties. So we had met with them as well. That would be where we would have reported educating or advocating an organizational decision maker. So we met with that person with the intent of them going to their board and also their staff and saying, is this something we can do? So we were trying to move that. So in that case, that last week, we would have reported in both those sections. These other two sections, both educating government policymakers and the advocacy with organizational decision makers, it's been easier for people to understand this, and it is pretty straightforward. So with that, I think it's fairly clear.
Real quick, just on how to enter the data on the report. Again, as you could see, that the decision maker name and organization is not available in a drop-down because we haven't entered anything yet into the system. So if I go to add decision maker, you'll want to add that decision maker's name. So I'll just enter Mary Jane as the name, and then what organization that person is with. So I'll just put an organization name. I didn't hit save. And then when I go to add my activities, and I have that person available from the drop-down, then you'll enter your date of that meeting, and then the category that describes the nature of your conversation, and then describe your interaction.
And again, in this description, be sure and talk about how this interaction will help advance your policy priority.
So then we'll go to the last one, government policymaker education. If we go to add our activity, you'll want to pick from the drop-down what type of government policymaker you educated. So if it fits into one of those categories, please select the category that's listed, or if it's not on there, just select other local public entity. I'm just going to enter city mayor, and then you'll talk about the government policymakers that you reached. And down below is our preferred format. So if I were to put down Bob Smith and he's the mayor, then you put his position in parentheses. And then you'll describe that educational activity.
And this is one area that I think is especially when you're looking at policymakers and/or educating advocating under organizational decision makers. If you can recruit anyone from that group, for instance, if you have a city council person that sits on your leadership team, every time you bring in someone to talk about or educate around your policy priority, you can include this in this activity and just describe it so that as they are and even though they are on the leadership team, they're also policymakers. It's one of the reasons I think it's important to consider those folks in being on your leadership team. And of course, sometimes it's hard to do because you want people on your leadership team that really will be champions of the work that you're doing.
We have a question that came in. Can we report advocacy of the decision maker if the decision maker advocates very broadly? For example, he or she advocates for access to healthy food, but not necessarily our focus of a food policy council.
Yes, as long as you describe that in your description. So describe how that would help support food policy council. It provides information that would help. It would be nice if they would make some kind of connection to a body that might help advise around the food system. But yeah, as long as you can just do the best you can. Like I said, we're going to have other people looking at it. If you describe well within the description how it's going to advance your policy priority, I think it's great to go ahead and report that. I would lean towards reporting more questionable things rather than not, because it's not like an SAT test. You're going to get something wrong if it is wrong. It's really around trying to capture as best and tell the story on how we advance this policy priority.
So that covers all of the activity reports. Again, your annual reports will also be submitted through this site, but we're not going to go through that because those are quite a ways away, and we'll go through how to complete those as the dates get closer. If you have any questions, could you go ahead and just type them in the question box? I'd like to open up the phones, but in the past we've done that, and there's so much background noise that it doesn't work. So if you have any questions, please type them in the question box. And we are also recording this webinar, so we'll have it posted hopefully by the end of this week or early next week, and we'll have that available on the HCI SharePoint site.
Don't see any questions. That is either people aren't listening or it's good and they all understand, right?
Okay, here we have
here we go.
A couple more questions. We are getting examples of model policies. How do we use that information to educate policymakers without lobbying?
Well, you really aren't lobbying for anything until you encourage a policymaker to make a decision. So you can provide education around model policies to anybody, as long as you don't say, I want you to take this policy, I want you to go to the county commission meeting, I want you to formally vote for this in some fashion. So it's as long as, especially if it's in the form of a model policy, that's not a lobbying.
Another question we have is, if not certain where the activity should be placed, should we call, pick one, or some other suggestion?
You can do any of those. You could actually go ahead and, because in the last report, when I reviewed some of those reports, there were some areas where under community mobilization, there probably really wasn't community mobilization, but it was educating either an organizational leader, or it was or educating a policymaker, advocating with an organizational leader. So we can still kind of look through that, and we'll be able to kind of assess that. So, like I said earlier, we want to capture the stories, and so reporting more probably is better. But feel free to give us a call or your TA provider a call and ask their advice. Well, if there aren't any further questions, If you haven't received the instructions that Claudia sent out last week, feel free to reach out to either us, your TA provider, reach out to me, and we'll provide those instructions. Those instructions for a while probably will be in draft form, so technically they may change. But right now, I think for the most part, they should help you when you do your monthly reporting. And one other thing I neglected to make sure that the activities that are happening happen within that reporting period. We did have some people that reported, I think they reported that there was a commitment by someone to do something by a date in September, and basically they should have reported that if they in fact actually did the activity that they committed to doing. They should report that when that activity happens, not when it's planned.
Yeah, so this first report, as you can see, it covers September 1st through all of October 31st, and that's due on November 15th. Once November 1st hits, this drop-down will show your next reporting period. So you'll have two, so make sure that you're entering the correct activities within the correct reporting period, because we'll have two different reporting forms available, so you can start getting ready for your next report, which will be November 1st through December 31st.
So I know that some of the communities around the Healthy Communities Round 1 have already started reporting some of their activities during this reporting period, and that's great. But like I know a lot of people wait till the last minute to fill these things out, and one of the things we did notice is that people, since they filled it out in September, they were reporting activities that happened in the first part of September. And that's great that they happened, but you probably should save those for the next reporting period.
And again, the first report for the Round 2 communities is November 15th of this year. And they need to be, or everything needs to be entered by midnight of November 15th, because that's the data that we'll get here at the foundation. And once that midnight hits on November 15th, everything's locked and you can't add anything else. So please make sure you've entered everything that you want to enter.
Well, if we don't have any other questions, we're doing another webinar tomorrow. This will be recorded, and please feel free to contact any of the TA, technical assistance team, or the foundation, and we will be happy to help you.
Thank you.
Take care.